as an author, have a sort of responsibility. And the answer was, if an artist have a responsibility, that must be to feel and to listen. And the thing is that if you regard the sentence is sad, that is very passive. So every human being is then an artist. So it's not the way of making the piece as a sort of object which is important, but to listen and to feel, and I think that is a fabulous sentence. And it has followed me for a long, long time, to see every person sort of as an artist.
An artist themselves, yes.
Themselves. So it's not necessary to make a sort of activity out of your artist work. It is an art in itself to listen and to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I like that sentence. It's very interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting. No, but it's a lot of thinking to make such a sentence, I think.
I hope you don't mind.
No, you can have the microphone on.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Night discussions in Sweden. Take one. To me, I tend to think a lot like Stockhausen's point of view of art. How it's supposed to be a creative process, your own creative process that you bring out to people. And the best point is, I'm a human being, like Heraclitus, that says that the man goes to the river, and he's not the same man, neither the river. So you see an art object, and it affects you in a way that you're not the same person as before. And that is because the artist must be authentic, must be true to himself. There's no point in making a thing that's not true to you and how it will affect another person. That's something that I found. I had some insights during Rubens' performance. Even that we didn't like it, we thought of it as provocative, and the point was to be provocative. It was valid. Valid in a sense that look how many aspects it brought to us, how many points, interesting points. I mean, we felt something. We felt provoked, we felt sleepy in a sense. We felt anger in a sense as well. But we weren't numb during his presentation. We felt something. And it actually, now is trying to make a point with Western kind of art. It had a social event. After the concert, we were up until 3 a.m. discussing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even Rubens' performance was even greater than like Seth's flute piece, because we didn't even mention it so much.
Mm-hmm.
We just, it was nice, good breathing by the flutist, and that's it. But Rubens brought discussions, and my insights were about the spectator being true, about his feelings as well. I mean, it's completely valid for a person. Now, actually, it's kind of disrespectful, but it's valid if he feels sleepy and sleeps during the concert, or just get out of there. No. That's something that when we had the first Yandere performance that lasted like 2 hours and 40 minutes. When we had it, we left like. Have you been to the auditorium?
Yes, I've been
So-
to the auditorium.
So we had like these big windows open. So if people want, they could go out. There were people who uh, who thought that our music inspired them to even smoke weed outside, and that's the point that I like about the university. If they want to do that, their sense of appreciation. I don't like people to be high when they listen to my music, but it's valid in some sense. It's the uh, it's the conflict, the nice conflict of my piece, my point of view, and their point of view. Be as it is.
But we had a big discussion in Sweden a couple of years ago, and it was about an artist who were making provocative caricatures about Muhammad.
Yes.
And I think that kind of provocation is. I don't get the point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, absolutely, that is about free speech,
Mm-hmm.
a free way of making art. I agree on that. But that is also a way of calculate the provocation, and then I think you, in one way, drop the art.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, he was provoking. He knew that he was provoking. So we had a big discussion in Sweden about that, and then you can consider that, okay, my art is my provocation. Of course, you can do that. But I think that is a little bit unfair because you know the response.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm making a sort of provocation, which I know the result from the provocation, then I think it's some very big question marks about the art in itself. Because I think art should open up windows, not only for yourself but also for an audience, or to think. What can I think about when I see or listen or read about that? And we have different cultural heritage and different cultural expression. And if you are listening to my music, for example, you listen with your cultural heritage. I will listen to your piece with my cultural heritage. And if, for example, Sonja is going to play her piece, she have her cultural heritage, which open up the windows for my perspective, your perspective, and Sonja's perspective. So it is a sort of open auditorium where there are different perspectives on the way you are handling the art. But if you know the provocation, that this must be the result, I think that is a little bit unfair.
Pretensions, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. There are 2 points, two questions that this kind of argument raises. The compositional aspect of how pretentious is the composer to try to know to how can I say this, know the feelings and ideas he's going to generate on the audience. I mean, they have their own cultural aspects, moral aspects, their own truth. So here I am bringing my truth, and I want you to comprehend my truth and think the same as me. That's a fascist way of thinking music. That's a pretty huge insight, because how can we just assume that the things I'm composing are to stimulate this line of thought, and it's not supposed to be that way. If you think, the other question that it raises is, where are the limits of freedom of speech and just hatred discourse and speech? So, for instance, in Brazil, we have a lot of figures and congressman, the one I told you, the stupid one. And he says a lot of homophobic ideas and prejudice against black people. And although I don't agree with those ideas, I think it's completely fair for a person to be homophobic until on his own personal bubble and living. When that passes that bubble and gets into a collective aspect, that's violence. So if I'm a homophobic, it's my problem. But when I do a violence to another homophobic, or say that to him, oh, to another to another homosexual, now that's violence. And this congressman says things that he's thinking, but he has that congressman figure. He has the mechanisms to spread this kind of thinking, so it starts to be a hatred speech, just to provoke hate on other people. Now that's maybe like the Muhammad cartoons. I'm a big fan of black humor, acid humor, and because humor is supposed to be free as well. But when you're dealing with delicate aspects, delicate things, you can't just do this kind of hatred discourse where people are going to support it, especially when, like I said about Muhammad, and you got so much Islamophobia going on, and people that see the reactions and just point at the reactions, not the actions of terrorist groups like ISIS. And I think that just contributes to the masses thinking and prejudice.
Yes, and I also think that in religion, the believers believe they have the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And in my way of thinking, in my way of acting, no one has the truth.
Of course.
And the thing is that if I'm very active and say that I have the truth, you don't have the truth, because I know what truth is. That is also very provocative to me, because I don't think there is a truth, because it depends on your heritage, actually. And we were discussing that before about different groups in Brazil, for example, the Indians, and I mean, they have their own beliefs. Why shall I get into a sort of missionary way to say that they must believe in my way of thinking because I have the truth? And I think there are too many people who walk around in life with their own truth, and I think that's the failure of our contemporary society, and has probably been so for many hundred years, many thousand years, I think. But it's very strange to say, I have the truth.
Yes, you have your own truth.
Yes.
People should assume that. That's one of the things I think about when creating an argument in a discussion. I've been into some debate where I present my own truth as a statement, but of course, to achieve that own truth, I have a lot of factual background, research background, and some people just try to break this truth by presenting their other own truth. So we're not getting anywhere. It's supposed to, when you state something, you're supposed to break it from your own facts, or your own researches. Like we were saying about composition becoming a scientific side. So we have the scientific ways of composing, but we don't embrace like in a scientific research where you can just be wrong. But of course, in scientific research, people just don't say, no, my theory is better than yours. No, my theory is better because I made more researches about the same thing you started. And that's, I don't know, that's something that people should think about. That's the main thing I try to think about when I actually like to criticize a lot, a lot of pieces, art pieces and art stuff. And that's how I try to being based. It's to see it, like when I talk about Lacan's psychoanalysis, is to see to start by what you already said, by not by saying, oh, I prefer my way, but by saying, I see some things I don't agree on your way because of this and that. That's something, I don't know, something that, yeah.
Yes,
Please.
and I was also thinking when we are talking about music that, for example, famous French music theorist, I think he was born about 1300, something like that.
Yes.
He was called Johannes de Grokeio, and he was categorizing music in 3 types. And the first type was musica ecclesiastica, church music.
Yes.
And then the second one was musica mensurabilis.
Okay.
It was music composed and for the people who know the music. You can say it in that way. And the third type was musica vulgaris. And the thing is that this is the first categorization about music which is made in Western music, where he differentiate the different types of music for that time. And I think that is it's almost the same today. You have church music, you have music, for example, as Beethoven or Berlioz, or music for those who are interested in music, or music as sort of knowledge.
Yes.
And then you have a sort of popular music, folk music, traditional folk, holistic music. and it's the way it is today also, and it hasn't changed.
Yes. It's yeah.
And that is to me it's very strange, because I think that if you speak to an average man in Western Europe, he will say that, oh, this is church music. Oh, this is Beethoven. This must be a sort of music which I will learn from. And but I mostly listen to popular music and so on. So the three categories are the same today. So it's a sort of interesting way of categorizing music, and it hasn't changed.
Yeah, and it's about functionality.
Functionality, yes.
That's something that I believe people should be aware in art about functionality and purpose. So what do you intend? Not in that sense that I was saying about pretentious sense of like I want you to feel that, but what are my purpose with this kind of music? Is it a worship kind of music, like church music, a social kind of music, which I believe that most classical music from I don't know from when you get from traditional music even to from contemporary music, because that's the point of I don't know listening to an electroacoustic piece from an electroacoustic concert. I mean, if you have good headphones, you're probably getting even a better sound quality than just putting on speakers. But you wouldn't have the same social purpose of discussing it, of being a collective kind of way of musical aesthetics.
Yes.
Realization. Yes.
But during our age, our contemporary music, I think that music has been so privatized.
Yes. Yes.
Because you have a lot of possibilities to choose your own music, and I now mean your own music. And if I choose, for example, one piece that is mine, I can't correspond to your music. So we are probably not talking about music in that sense of aesthetic values, ideas, philosophy, because I just like the music. Because we have lost the thinking of music, we have lost the way of communication between music categories, I think.
Yes. It's more about venting.
Yes, and it's more about what I like. I like that music, but why do you like it? That is hard, because then there is a lack of word. I can say that I like this music because the text is good. And I mean, the text isn't the music. But if they continue, they can say that, oh, I like the drum beat. And so on. So it's a lack of words to describe music, and it's a lack of idea what music can be. I think that is very important. So it's very hard to discuss music when it's so privatized.
Yes.
And I think that is a problem of the contemporary, and now it is important to say that everything is contemporary. I mean, in this situation.
Of course. I think that it comes to the point of how people appreciate music, because there are two ways when you look at it by trying the most impartial view you can have, and you can get, like just analyzing the functionality, analyzing the work by itself, and when you allow it to correspond to correspond or not to your own truth. So today's contemporary music, they try to follow in same aesthetic point of view. Like I told you that in Brazil, contemporary composers, they think about the holy trinity of composition of Giardino and Venero and Lachmann, and they try to compose in that same sense. And when someone comes with pieces that I think are even more beautiful, are even more authentic, because they're being true to their self as composers. If it doesn't correspond to that aesthetics, they discard it. They threw it away.
But do you think that that has to do with the identity, to be a sort of I would like to have my identity as a European composer,
Yeah, as well.
not as a
Brazilian,
Brazilian
yeah.
or South American composer, because I know that there are things going on in Europe and in the way they compose. So I would like to have my identity as a European composer to keep up the system
Yes,
in South America.
that's
I mean, it. I think it. I think it is very dangerous to say that, and to say that no, I neglect the European composers. I have my own ideas about composition,
uh-huh.
because then you lose the identity towards Europe. Is what do you think about that? Your own thoughts about that?
Oh, I think has something to do, like I told you about South America being a European colony, and people still have that thought so impregnated, and it's so inside of their line of thought, that they tend to have idols and people and things from outside are better than things we have inside, we have here in Brazil. No, it's better things that come from Europe. And
But I don't think you can compare, because you have a different background.
of course,
And that is very strong, because I have noticed that there are very few pieces in the concert halls or in the orchestras when they play South American music.
hmm
Why? Because
actually, yeah, I think maybe Brazilian music goes to Brazilian contemporary music. It goes to it follows two paths mainly. Either you are a try to compose like Europeans, or you try to compose like, and in my opinion, kind of outdated nationalism movement, and how can I say, like the movement that came in Brazil of patriotism, and where people try to compose like Francisco Mignon and Villa Lobos in some sense. And I actually think I am a guy who swims upstream
yeah,
because although I try to have my piece in a aesthetic quality, I mean aesthetic quality like having good structures and mechanisms that I know are being done and are well developed nowadays. But actually, in my pieces, I try to bring some more some traditional thought that I think that today's music some people are losing. And I say that because I see some post-serious composers who are just so caught up in structures and mathematical concept and stuff that just focus them and takes away their freedom. Unlike traditional music, in some sense, when you say about talk about variations or stuff like that, I don't know, like you see Bartok's music. Bartok actually has some categories when making his music, where he says, "Oh, I just use a folk melody and reharmonize it and vary over that, or I just have my own poetics that is inspired by folk music, like Allegro Barbaro. Allegro Barbaro isn't a melody; it was made up by Bartok. So he has that axiom of this is the melody, and he varies at will, like a composer. That's something that I try to do in my piece. Actually, to have the dichotomy where I have all the electronic synthesis. They were all so mathematical and so restrained in some sense, but all the concrete parts had that compositional touch, had my own variational. So I think some composers are following a trend that makes their composition more impersonal in some sense. So aesthetic starts to uh, superimpose on the composer himself. That's something that, and as well as I try to make a Brazilian kind of music, but putting the Brazilian uh, thought and culture in a subtle way, in a synthesized way. It's not supposed to be that folk melody to represent Brazil. It can be the what Brazil is for me and what how I am as a Brazilian composer and how I make my music. That should be my Brazilian context the music. So I don't need to follow the path of nationalist music in Brazil, but I don't need to follow the European idols as well. I can just follow my own way.
Yes, and I've been discussing with Simon a lot of times, and we've had very good discussions because we ended up, we have no responsibility what Beethoven wrote. And if you think about that sentence, when we say that we don't have the responsibility for what he wrote, that is also sort of freedom, because then you can express yourself in another way. And I think also, for example, if you, I don't say you shall not know about Beethoven, that is another thing, but if you shall, we are not responsible for the music which has been done, it's a lot of freedom, because then there is a lot of open doors which you can just go through, I think, instead of say that, oh, I'm responsible for Beethoven's music, I will put his music in front of my own music, and I will keep it that way. That because then it locks the door immediately. So I think that was a good sentence, because we are not responsible for Beethoven's music.
Of course.
But as a composer, you shall of course know about Beethoven's music, but that is another thing. But if you drop a sort of responsibility for the old music, I think it opens a lot of doors in front of you, and not,
of course,
pushing Beethoven forward. And he's a strong composer, but we are not responsible for his music.
Of course.
And I think that is very interesting when you are talking to European composers because they have a sort of responsibility for the old music which is composed. So they use old composers as a sort of lance and also as a shield.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, well, why?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you use Beethoven as a lance? You shall have your own lance with your own music, not Beethoven's lance, because that was important for him.
Of course.
But you shall not use Beethoven's lance. And,
I think Hypothesis Poetics is just the best of both worlds when he shows that it is important to know what came before,
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
it's not, and you shouldn't just throw it away, but also you shouldn't be restricted by it. So just like Beethoven's music, people think about it. People also think about contemporary composers.
Yes, exactly.
Like
exactly.
the Fernehus and the
Yes.
the Lachmans and
your
stuff like
own
that.
music and Sonja's music and Daniel's music. I mean, I think it's more in one way more important to listen to your colleagues' music than Beethoven's music because of you can discuss your music, you can discuss the ideas, you can discuss the philosophy about his or her music, but that is hard to do with Beethoven. Because he was living in another society.
Of course.
So and other circumstances.
That's important. I've noticed. I think in here in Europe that, but in Brazil there are some people that think like.
What I mean is that
Yeah.
I think Beethoven is an industry. Mozart is an industry.
Oh yes. That's exactly it.
So that is not important to me.
Yes.
I like Beethoven's music. I know about Beethoven's music, but the circumstances he made his music, composed his music,
were different.
They were very different.
Yes.
So.
And I think that most people just don't understand traditional music nowadays. Orchestras just play it over and over again, but in different circumstances than when they were made or purposes. Like I told you, people play a divertimento from Mozart in an auditorium, and everybody should be quiet and just listening to it, and that's not it. It's different. It's a different context.
Absolutely, and I was also thinking that it has been a big discussion the last 20 years about to play Mozart authentic or Beethoven authentic.
Yeah.
And then you need an authentic public, an authentic audience.
Authentic thinking.
Yes, authentic thinking, and we will not be there with the audience. And I think the problem is the lack of words and the lack of thinking in today's audience, because you can sort of make clues for the audience with your own music. Today you have an authentic composer, you have authentic music, and we have authentic audience, public. And I think that is very important today, I think, to sort of is a good word? I must think about the word. Sublimize
Mm-hmm.
your speech about music.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that is what we are actually trying to do as composers, musicologists. We will never lose the mystery of music. Yes, we can try to explain our ideas. We can get deeper into the work of art and to sublimize the words, but we will never solve the mystery of music. And I think that's also
There's
think.
there's an interesting phrase by Zizek. Um, I think he wrote it in the book "The Year of Dreaming Dangerously," or "The Year That We Dream." I forgot the name. Talks about some protests during 2011 and Arab Spring. Anyway, he says that art, good piece of art, is doesn't matter the time. It's limitless, so it will always be enjoyed. Um, and that's kind of hard to think. Exactly because people change. Even our pieces that are written 1 week ago, are already out of context to us already. So when I listened to my piece, it just felt completely different from when I was composing it, and even before I learned, I knew that Tunga had died. It just maybe it even felt kind of sad for me to listen to it again after having that information. So that's how I understood. Actually, a good art, I don't know, it's not limitless. It's not timeless. Sorry, it's not timeless. It's just academic because you need to understand the history and you need to have a rational point of view in some sense. I mean, it will talk to you emotionally, but while it connects and to your own ideas, to your own emotional purposes, but you must understand the time, you must understand the composer, the artist, everything. It's actually good art is unique for that moment and supposed to be enjoyed at that moment, at that place, and that would be the best.
I was also thinking about the solo recital with Ruben
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, and it should have been very interesting to listen to the pieces again,
Mm-hmm.
just to get another perspective on the pieces.
Of course.
So I think I should have reacted in another way, because maybe I was too tired. That could be a reason. They were too long, I think.
We had no information
No
about
information.
provocative art and stuff
No,
like that.
and I was thinking, how shall I react listening a second time? Will I change perspective with my listening?
So
that's
that might be it. The good art, it is the one that is unique
yeah, maybe,
at each moment, and makes you think about it again. It's like I was saying about aesthetics realization. When you're a composer and a performer, in whatever art that is, it's the same. So you have that first static realization when you listen to the piece. You have the second when you understand the piece. The third when you analyze the piece. And the fourth when you play the piece. And I don't know, even the fifth when time has passed and you do it all again. And it goes on. But it just gets even more intense, and I don't know, to me, it is like that. I think the first real static realization I've got in music was when I was analyzing the Quarto pour le fin de temps, pardon, from Messiaen, because I was somewhat young by the time. I think I was 19 years old, or 20, 19, and I've liked it the first time I've seen it when I was 17 or so. But after I read the technique of a musical language, after I analyzed everything, it was just even more intense. After I've learned about Messiaen's history, it was even more intense. So that's it. It's interesting how art talks to you.
But then you're getting deeper and deeper into
yes.
the work. But the mystery of the music is still there.
Mm-hmm.
But you have a sort of making scuba diving into his work, because it's getting deeper and deeper, and you know more and more. And you can, for example, you can listen that, he made this Mordi there, and so on. You can explain things in the music, and it will get more and more intense, and in one way you understand the music, in another way, but it will never take away the mystery of music.
Yes.
It just deepen your knowledge about the piece.
Yes.
And that is very interesting. But there is a lack of curiosity to this today, I think, because there are a lot of composers that are not interested, or young people are not interested in that way of analyzing music or talk about music in that way. So I think that music has been a sort of private arena where you have your own music, and I have some difficulties to talk about you, because you have not the same music as I do.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of lack of communication between people that when they are talking about music, the ideas of music. So maybe the society have been too privatized.
Yes.
And I remember, for example, when I grew up as a child, we had only one TV station in Sweden, TV1. And people were actually talking about the TV programs the day after. We were discussing that. Have you seen that? Yes. Did you watch telly last night and this program? And then the discussion was about the program, and it was a discussion, for example, at the universities, the shops everywhere, but it was about the same program. So people discussed it in that way. But today, when it's so privatized, there is a lack of communication between the different ideas, the different aesthetics. I think it has been too privatized.
It's interesting because that's one idea that I was having about the Ivory Tower. Because in one sense, when you talk about a TV program, it's supposed to be for the masses, so everyone just understands it. And it is natural to have elites. Elites in the sense of groups that like that kind of stuff, not groups that exclude other from getting to this group. That's when you, I don't know, privatize it in a financial way, when you start exclude. But there are composers who think about their works in a sense that, oh no, I want more people to understand it, to appreciate it. So I'm going to simplify my work, and in a sense, you may have a larger focus group on it, but in another, I think it just contributes to the ivory tower, because now I'm so superior to you that I will simplify my work so you can understand it as well. And then that becomes an even bigger problem.
Yes, it is.
It's
I have never been thinking like that, but when you're talking about it, it's yes.
And that's something that I never agreed on my pieces. So that's actually one of my problems in composing miniatures. It's I don't know, I don't tend to, that's why I had a discussion about length. What you guys think about length in composing music? I don't think about length at all. But in my process, my pieces just take longer and longer and longer times. So for instance, to compose this piece that is supposed to be up into 10 minutes and get 12 minutes, I just got lesser resources that I would have get, or else it would have lasted 20 to 30 minutes because of my process. And when I think about the miniature, it isn't true to me. I have a hard time composing a 2 minutes piece, and that's not even a miniature. Now, if you think about it, 30 seconds, 1 minute, oh no, 1 minute pieces are hard. Are hard to me. And it's like that, like as well as simplifying a piece, it's not true to me. So if we come back to the first discussion, I mean, how can I try to compose something that will speak to you, speak to everyone else, if it doesn't even speak to me?
Absolutely.
So that's the first problem, simplifying your work.
That is the first. It's not a problem, but yes, it is. If you are not satisfied with your own piece, how can you do? How can you then say that? Can you be satisfied with only 3 minutes? But I'm not satisfied as a composer. But now I have simplified it down to 3 minutes, and that is a sort of strange way of behaving as a composer, I think, because you need to be honest. We were talking about to be honest as an artist, and I think that is very important, to be honest with your work.
Yes.
Otherwise, I mean,
when I
it's very strange.
When I composed that Mnemonian Abu Ghraib, that is a 3.5 minutes miniature. I only composed it that way because I plan on reviewing it, and the other structure, the other part of the composition would be to make it like a mobile, kind of an open work form. So people have like this line that they could play line A or line B. So I'm going to make a Memoriam upgrade, sorry, B, where they could just rip out their scores and put this other part on this part and have different combinations. So that was actually the only way I could compose that 3.5 minute piece. That is going to be just one of the ways of executing that work. So yeah, I think that's it. I think people should be aware that today's music, today's information, people are just more and more different from each other. So it's not rational to think that your music is going to affect everyone, to even be heard by everyone. That's just not going to happen. That's just pretentious.
Yes, it is. I think so.
Yeah.
It's not the time for that.
Yes.
Yes, you can